If your future self, the version where it all works out for you in your love and relationships, could come back and give you advice, what advice would they give you? Someone asked me this question recently, saying it this way: Matt, you're married, you've got a beautiful family. If you could travel back in time and give your 20-year-old self advice, what advice would you give them? And I love this question because it really causes me to filter out, okay, what's really important? What are the essential things that version of me would need to know versus what's kind of fluff? And so today I'm going to share with you 7 things that I would tell my 20-year-old self that would serve him in finding love. So let's start in the dating aspect. The first lesson that I would tell my 20-year-old self is it's okay to date exploration relationships. Back when I was in my 20s, I used to think that every date was a high stakes audition. Is this woman the one for me? And I was overanalyzing every word, the silences, like the spark or the lack of spark, like the commonalities that we had. Oh my gosh, you love football, I love football. Oh, you love the beach, I love the beach. Like this must mean we're meant to be together. And then we realized we're really not compatible. And it was such a roller coaster ride for me. In fact, when I was dating, I would look across the room, try to predict if the woman that I was interested in just talking to, if she was potentially the one. And if I witnessed something or saw something that was like, oh, maybe she's not the one, that I wouldn't even approach her. That is way too much pressure. None of us are going to know if our person is the one until we actually get to know them more. And so I would give myself way more freedom to talk to way more people. I would shake off the typecasts that I had. I would start dating outside of just the small category of people that I thought was going to be my person. And I would start exploring way more. And I would be way more relaxed on these dates. I remember on a date, a woman gave me the gift of feedback. On our first date, at the end, she was like, you know what? Can we just like relax a little bit with the questions? Because I feel like I'm on a job interview. And I realized, oh my gosh, I was just firing all kinds of questions at her because I was trying to decode whether or not she was the one rather than just being present. See, love experiences, they're meant to reveal. They're not meant to resolve right away. They help shape who we are in relationships. They shape our identity. They shape knowing what lights us up or what doesn't light us up, what feels draining, what feels expansive, what feels triggering, what inspires trust. Every experience, every relationship, even if it doesn't last, has within it lessons that are going to help us become more of who we're meant to be. And so I would give myself the freedom of experiencing way more than I allowed myself to experience in my 20s from the aspect of not putting pressure on myself that the person I was going to ask out had to be the one. So the second lesson I would give myself in my 20s is this one. If it doesn't work out, even if I'm in love with them, it means something better is coming. This is a tough one to get, especially if we're deeply in love with somebody and they break our heart. I believe in spiritual truth. I believe that God doesn't have someone worse in store for us if a relationship doesn't work out. That's not the way spirit works. That there must be something even better still. And the challenge is getting ourselves to actually believe this. There were so many times when I was dating and I'd fall in love with somebody and then it wouldn't work out and my heart would just be shattered. Like it would feel like death. You probably have these moments where maybe you were betrayed or cheated on or left or it just didn't work out. And it was like you can't eat, you can't sleep, you're just bereft. We don't want to do a spiritual bypass. We want to feel whatever emotions of sadness for the loss of the relationship we need to feel in order to heal. I would keep myself entrenched in the pain with the thoughts like, oh, she was the best thing I'm ever going to have, or oh, she was the one meant for me. When the truth of the matter is, that there was someone even better in store for me. I just hadn't met that person yet. And that this relationship was a perfect relationship to help cultivate me and to help get me ready for what was next in line, what was yet to come. And I had all these relationships where there were crash and burn relationships and difficult or heart-wrenching or those types of things. And then I met my wife. And so if I could go back to my 20-year-old self and say, hey, look, man, it's going to work out. Like the woman who's coming your way is amazing. The woman who's coming your way is going to blow your mind. It's going to be head and shoulders above any of these other heartbreaks. So I know, do the healing work. Feel what you need to feel, but let yourself know in your bones that the best is yet to come. If I knew that, it would reduce the intensity and the drama and all the stuff that I went through in my 20s. And so I invite you to lean into that same idea, because I really believe that is a spiritual truth. The longing you have for love, that is the counterpoint to the existence of the possibility of that love in your life. It's like there are no one-sided coins. So if you've got the feeling for love, the answer to that longing also exists. And so no matter what you're going through, no matter what heartache, heartbreak, how long maybe you've been single, know this, that person's out there. That person's going to come into your life and it's going to be better than you even imagined. The third lesson that I would give my younger self would be this: stop trying to get others to like me on dates. Instead, be myself and see who's the match and who I repel. Because the right person for me is going to like myself. Now, the challenge is in our 20s, we're still trying to figure out who we are, right? We're still trying to figure out what we like, what we don't like, our personality, who we want to be. And so that kind of tends to have like a chameleon aspect. You're dating somebody, you're like, maybe I want to try this version of myself on. Maybe I want to try that version of myself on. But the opportunity for us is to really get to know thyself, to understand what is it that you really like? What do you not like? And so when I would be dating in my 20s, I like to think of it this way. We're all diamonds with all these beautiful facets to who we are, to our personalities. And you're with somebody, you can shine the facet that resonates with them in the interest of getting them to like you. And what I would tell myself is, shine all the facets, man. Let all of you come forth, because that is going to do two things. It's going to repel the wrong people faster, and you don't need them to like you to be enough. It's okay. You're enough just as you are. Second thing that will happen when you shine all of yourself is you attract the right person faster, because you're sending out a stronger signal. Authenticity magnetizes. We're all drawn to someone who knows who they are and they're willing to shine it, not in a way that judges people, but in a way that fully accepts people. You fully accept yourself enough to shine all the facets of who you are. Remember, we are not here to earn love. We're here to align with love. Lesson number 4 would be this: lightning bolts don't mean it's going to last. Ooh, man, this one cost me some deep pain. That intense electric chemistry that we all love, we all enjoy, right? It's exciting, it's addicting, but it is definitely not the only signal that the thing that you have is going to pass the test. That relationship is actually healthy, because chemistry does not equal compatibility. I've coached so many women who got swept up in passion and chemistry with a man who had zero emotional availability, and they wondered why it didn't work. When I was dating a woman I fell deeply in love with, we didn't have the compatibility to actually make it last. We had very different values. And so one of the reasons why it was so painful was because I misinterpreted that chemistry as a sign that we were soulmates. Well, I wouldn't be feeling this intense with someone if they weren't actually ordained by spirit, by God, to be my life partner. Have you ever told yourself that? Then when it doesn't work out, you start questioning everything. Like, maybe I'm not meant to be with the person I was meant to be with. Like, that's craziness. So we can have all kinds of chemistry. Like, if someone can flip all of our switches and it be super hot, super high, but it doesn't mean that's our person, because it takes way more than chemistry to create your person. Now, your person is going to have both chemistry and compatibility. Oh man, and when that happens, it's so much richer, so much deeper, so much more profound, so much more also peaceful, grounding, and long lasting. And it can continue to grow. That compatibility grows, that chemistry grows, and so that becomes the foundation of something really, really amazing. If you had your heart broken by someone you thought was like, oh, I'm never going to feel that way again, know this, that didn't mean that was your person. It just means that they flipped all your chemistry switches, and the best is yet to come. And someone who has all of it, the chemistry, emotional availability, and the compatibility to make it last. The fifth lesson, that if I could give this gift to my 20-year-old self, I would have loved for my 20-year-old self to have this. And that is that vulnerability is actually the doorway to connection. I was in my 20s deeply afraid of being judged, being rejected. What I wanted was love and acceptance. And so I put on this mindset that I've got to look perfect. I've got to have it all together. Partly because If I get good grades, I get acceptance from my teachers and my parents. If I did well at sports, I got acceptance from girls and my friends. If I was in shape, I got accepted in social circles. So it was like the more I performed at a high level, the more acceptance I got in that era of my life. What was missing was that deeper emotional connection. Brene Brown talks about this. She talks about the vulnerability paradox, where we crave authentic connection, yet we hide the parts of ourselves that actually invite the emotional connection. And it wasn't until I did some deep inner work in my late 20s, did some seminar work, did some coaching with other coaches coaching me, my life completely changed. I had some experiences where when I really opened up and I shared the parts of me that were scared, the parts of me that didn't feel like I was enough, the parts of me that had doubts about who I was and what I was doing and what I was about. Then I created and got to experience a deeper level of connection and bonding and intimacy than I had ever had in my life with friends. Now, we don't want to do that with people who aren't going to protect our hearts. They're not going to hold our hearts in an understanding, compassionate, empathetic way. If you do have good friends, trusted friends, and in relationships, the way to take them deeper is to let the person see all of you. And then you hold space. Allow yourself to see all of the other person as well. Because remember, the amount of love that we receive is proportional to the openness of our heart. When your heart is open, you give love a way in. Number 6, I would give my 20-year-old self the wisdom that friction doesn't signal the end of the relationship. It's actually an invitation to grow. In my 20s, because I saw my parents divorce, and it looked like everything was fine up until the moment it wasn't. And they sat me down on the couch with my sister. I was 14 years old, and they said, "Hey, your mom and I are getting divorced." And it felt like a wrecking ball just slamming into my chest, splitting my heart into 1,000 pieces. I didn't understand it at 14 how they could be getting divorced, because they always told me they were soulmates. They always told me that they were like meant for each other, and then now they're divorcing. So I hooked up this idea that love can just come to a dramatic end. And so it was like looking for, what's the end? Like, don't get too invested because it could end very abruptly, very quickly. And so I would look at, if I was fighting, that was a signal that this thing is probably not meant to be. But the truth of the matter is that conflict is actually a fertile soil for growth. Where are our limiting beliefs? Where are our misperceptions? Where are the unhealed wounds within inside of ourselves that we can actually go deeper into and heal the past? And the truth of the matter is, how you handle conflict with your partner is the biggest indicator of whether or not your relationship is going to last. Because we all have conflict. Conflict never goes away. It's about building our skill sets of being able to navigate that friction and that conflict when it comes up. The opportunity for us is when we get triggered or when we're feeling angry, and I love this phrase, is to get curious instead of being furious. In other words, what is it about this that I'm feeling so angry about? What are the deeper needs that aren't being met right now? What are the agreements that are broken? How can we grow through this challenge? Every challenge contains within it the seed of an equal or greater benefit, the seed of transformation. The idea here is that love is not the absence of tension. It's actually the mastery of learning how to create reconnection. And the last lesson I would give my 20-year-old self would be this one: meet logic with logic and emotion with emotion. This took me a long time to get. So in relationships, there are moments when we're playful and we're being funny and we're doing logistics and you can have a logical conversation. And there are moments when one partner or the other needs an emotional response, not a logical response. In other words, if one person is emotional, the other person needs an empathetic or compassionate response. I'll give you an example of this. My wife and I were brushing our teeth. She's pregnant with our second child. She's out to here and brushing her teeth, and a picture comes up on her phone, Instagram, and it's all of her friends out to dinner. And boom, she just starts crying. And I said, "What's going on?" She's like, "All my friends are out to dinner and they didn't invite me, and feeling so rejected and alone." And so I'm empathizing with her, and I know why they didn't invite her, because I'm living with her. The last month, she has declined 7 invitations from them because she wasn't feeling well. She's pregnant. Didn't want to go out. And so they've invited her 7 times, and she was like, I can't. So this time they didn't invite her, and they went out. That's the logic. We don't have to feel bad. Of course, they've been inviting you. Very logical response. So my bright idea, before I had learned meet emotion with emotion, was to tell her, "Babe, well, of course they're not going to invite you out. You've declined like 7 invitations from them over the last month. And so she's like, that's not the point, blah, 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 blah. And she was like, gets mad at me, and because she's in an emotional state. Of course, that was, the wrong response to give her. The response to give her in that moment is to see her, to see, that I'm sure that does feel painful. I'm sure that it feels, here you are at the end of the pregnancy, and just have compassion. We call it jump in the puddle with your partner so they can feel seen and heard. And actually, what psychologists know is that this is actually the fastest way to help someone shift their emotion. It's not to invalidate them saying you shouldn't be feeling this way because logically it makes sense. It's to say, no, your feelings are valid. Whatever you're feeling, it's okay to feel that way. That then reduces the intensity of the feeling and helps them feel loved, seen, heard, supported, and then they can shake it off and transform it and move on. I love this idea that connection with someone is about being present with them, seeing them for who they are, where they are, what they're feeling, and recognizing it. And when someone's in an emotional state, don't fix it, but instead feel with them. That's what love does in those moments. These are the ideas that I could give my 20-year-old self if I could go back in time. My question for you is, if you could talk to your future self, the version of you who it all works out, they're living the life that you love, what advice do you think they would give you in this moment? And how would it feel to actually operate from that way of being today? I'd love to hear from you. Go ahead and share in the comment section below. And know this, I appreciate you. Here's to your amazing love life. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.